Entrevista especial aqui hoje com vocês. A gente está na CNN com a Lila Ibrahim, que é uma das líderes do Google DeepMind. O Google DeepMind que acabou de anunciar um investimento aqui no Brasil para capacitar 16 mil educadores para ensinarem não só sobre inteligência artificial, mas também a pensar sobre inteligência artificial, a ter pensamento crítico, quais os riscos, os limites, e a gente vai conversar com ela agora sobre isso e sobre muitas outras coisas. Lila, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you for being here. We're so excited for this conversation. So let's talk about AI, about this big announcement as well. But first, AI sparks a lot of different opinions. Is it gonna save us? Is it gonna destroy us? What are the main debates right now, and which conversations are already settled? Where's attention shifting next?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, we're in a really transformational time in AI's history. And I think we have the absolute agency to shape the future, but we must do this with responsibility in the forefront. And in my role as Chief AI Readiness Officer, I want to make sure that AI gets developed for and with communities and AI doesn't happen to communities. And this is really at the core of how we approach things at Google DeepMind. You know, within Google DeepMind, we like to think we're the engine room of AI innovation for all of Google products, whether that's on the science side with our AlphaFold, which helps to better understand diseases by predicting protein structures, all the way to Gemini. So again, we have a broad range of pioneering AI initiatives, but it all starts with ensuring that humans are in the lead and that we're making the most out of this very critical time in AI's development.
Amazing. You talked about Google DeepMind, but let's dive into it. What is its mission?
Google DeepMind's mission is to build AI responsibly to benefit humanity. This is really the core and the mission of what we do. Whether it's on the science side of how do we help accelerate scientific discovery, so that we can benefit humanity and address some of society's biggest challenges, whether it's how we deal with industrial waste and plastic in our oceans, all the way to how do we help understand diseases and then come up with better solutions. So everything on the science side to advancing the capabilities of advanced large multimodal models such as Gemini, such that they're actually a useful tool for human beings. Our goal really is how do we help humans advance and flourish and bring out our own curiosity so that we can create not only solutions in the world, but also identify new opportunities to advance our social and economic development.
And you are Google DeepMind's first Chief AI Readiness Officer.
I think I might be the first in the world too.
Really?
Yes.
So let's talk, what does this role entail and what prompted DeepMind to create this position?
Yes, it's been exciting to move into this role the past 6 months. And I think in many ways, I hope that other organizations follow and create AI readiness. As I said, we're in this unique moment in terms of AI's development, where it's not just about technological advancements, it's really about the human aspect of ensuring that technology is developed and implemented in a way that is benefiting humanity. So I started off in DeepMind 8 years ago as the company's first chief operating officer. My first focus was putting responsibility at the core of everything. How do you operationalize responsibility in a research environment? And after 8 years of really building the organization, the responsibility aspects, and how we collaborate with the outside, I felt that so much has changed in the world over the past 8 years that it was really time to start shifting the focus to, we've built it internally. Now, how do we help others build the same so that we can shape the future together? So it's really about how do we co-imagine and co-create the future, a better future, not just the AI lab, but doing it globally and with critical partners around the world.
Amazing. And I have to say, it's very special to see women in this position, because you inspire a lot of other women to do the same. So,
well, I hope so, because if AI is actually going to be beneficial, we need more voices.
Yes.
And we need more participants in this. And it's funny, I've had a very long technology career, and I feel in many ways like it was built for this moment in time. At the time, sometimes my journey didn't make any sense to me at all. But I really look back now and think that the different steps along the way, from my early childhood and the values to my global experience, really makes matter now. And part of the reason I wanted to shift from being chief operating officer to this role was because I felt almost that, oh gosh, I don't even know how to describe it. It's almost like a moral imperative. Like I joined DeepMind because I felt AI could be the most transformational technology of our time. And if I could bring my experience into this moment, it would be important, not only for me and the legacy and technology, but the signal to my daughters and the world that they're going to inherit. And now to have the opportunity to shift it from the internal focus to the external, and how do we collaborate and bring those learnings back into how we develop it. I feel like it's a new job, but I've never been busier as I have now, but I'm so passionate about it. It's been a really exciting moment for me, but one that keeps me up a lot at night because I have to worry about both the risk and the opportunity.
We can see that you're passionate about it. It's really special. And we have this big investment now. Let's talk about it. How did this begin and how will it work in practice?
Well, first of all, we've been really excited to see the progress that Brazil has contributed into AI advancements, including everything from the research team. We actually have a research team here based in Sao Paulo, as well as the usage. And we thought it's great that people are using AI for human productivity and creative aspects of it, but we also really want to ensure that the youth population is developing the skills and understanding and responsibility about how to use such a powerful tool. So together with our colleagues across Google, including google.org, we are making a 5 million, excuse my Portuguese here, reais? Is that? Reais, or $1 million US equivalent in Brazil to work with teachers and with students and to bring a program called Experience AI into Brazil. Now, it will all be local context, local language, and again, it's with the teacher at the center of the activities, and we are doing this together with the Raspberry Pi Foundation, who we worked with on the curriculum development, and a local nonprofit that is going to be helping us implement that.
Amazing. And do you have your own way of teaching? How was it built? It's not just about using AI, but it's also about debating ethical use, right?
Yeah, that was very important. So again, everything we do has to have responsibility built in from the beginning and not just a bolt-on. So when we first developed this curriculum a few years ago, we wanted to make sure that it was something that was thoughtfully and intentionally developed such that it could expand globally. So we actually began working on this based in London, and we worked with underserved communities to make sure that as we were developing the curriculum, that it could be a way that would engage the students to learn more about AI, but not just about it from a technical perspective, but a socio-technical and an ethical. What are the questions to ask? How is it trained? When to trust it, how to ask questions, to really interrogate and be curious about the technology. Once we had it in practice and use and can really fulfill the development of the content, we looked at the expansion. So again, want to be clear too, we really believe that teachers and the facilitators play such a critical role, so that the responsibility is not only in the content, but it's in the thoughtfulness in which we want to approach bringing it into Brazil with local partners.
Amazing. So I looked into some studies about AI in education here in Brazil and brought some data to include in our conversation. 71% of Brazilian higher education students use an AI frequently, and 42% do so weekly. So in your view, what's the next big challenge for education? Adoption, literacy, or responsibility?
From my perspective, all three. So my answer is yes. When I hear some of those numbers too, the engineer in me thinks about, okay, if 71% are using it, what's happening to the other 29? Are they going to be left behind because they're maybe not able to really understand how AI can be useful in their lifelong learning? So I think we have an issue here with access. And access is interesting because in the past, when we had introduced technology, let's say computers into classrooms, it was people didn't have computers. We had to worry about the internet connection. Now with artificial intelligence, it's available on all your devices as soon as it's launched. And so access, we have to make sure that students are connected. But even if they have access, sometimes they're not using it. They don't have the literacy skills to know how to use it. And I think this is one where we have to also think about the role that the teacher plays, because learning to use AI responsibly in the classroom will help students use it better outside of the classroom. Instead of just looking for an answer, they have to ask the questions to get to, learn how to ask better questions to get to an answer. Last year, we introduced a technology called, a feature called guided learning. So maybe I can explain that a little bit. Is that
sure?
Yeah, we'll have our own lesson here. As I said, DeepMind likes to think about what are the big scientific challenges in the world. And we decided that learning was a science problem. How do you learn differently than I learn. And so if we could understand how different people learn, then we could make AI help meet the student where they're at. So we did a lot of work with pedagogy experts, education experts around the world. We then took a basic AI and made it focused on being a good education specialist. Last year, Gemini was starting to get more capable, less hallucinations, more grounded in fact, more widely available, affordable for people to use. At that time, we took that special education features and put it into Gemini. What that means is everyone around the world can now use a special feature called guided learning. And what it does is it takes you step by step through the solution. So if you have a difficult math problem and you want to understand how to break it down, then you can do it. And maybe you like to listen to when you learn, or I like to visualize, so it can give me the information in a way that I can learn better. And we think this is going to be an important step to, one, personalized learning, and then two, to personalized mastery. But it all has to start with the students having the encouragement to use these tools both in the classroom and outside. So you're not memorizing for a test, but you're actually learning what you need to learn.
Since you mentioned that, how can AI assist people with learning difficulties, neurodivergence or disabilities? My father, for example, he was blind and unfortunately he passed away before the rise of AI, but early technology already helped him. So how might future AI push these advancements further for individuals in similar situations?
Yeah. This is something that's also very personal to me. My sister has cerebral palsy, so she grew up with a wheelchair, and people, the school system was not made for her. But my parents had to fight to have her have access to an education. She's had a very successful career now, but I learned very on where technology could be helpful. And it goes back to responsibility. We have a unique opportunity to ensure that this technology is finally built with access in mind. And the fact that from Gemini, we built it from the beginning to be multimodal, and that means it can take audio, video, image, code, text, all together. And that means that I think for the first time, we have an opportunity to use the technology to bring everybody into play. Yesterday, earlier this week, I had the honor of visiting Google's new Accessible Design Center in Sao Paulo. It's only the second one in the world that we're building out. And it's really a place with ITP near the University of Sao Paulo to be an engineering center to encourage not only within Google, but also the technology community to design for and with accessibility in mind. And I see this firsthand in my own household. I have one daughter who's dyslexic and one daughter, they happen to be twins. So I see the difference that one is a traditional learner, and the school system, she can fit to the existing school system, the industrial model of education. And my other daughter uses AI, as I mentioned, to break down problems to understand. Mm-hmm. So I'm very excited about what this means, but we have to keep talking and encouraging people to think about building and using AI to ensure that everyone, everywhere, has access.
Sure. And there are also a lot of concerns about dependency on technology and the loss of human connection. How do you balance both sides?
I think with any technology, we have a lot of lessons to learn from the past. I think we have to approach this time with great humility, questioning where's the technology most useful and where do we think the human aspect is so important. I like to, when I talk with teachers or I talk to business leaders, I like to encourage them when they're thinking about AI in their organizations to understand how people are using them, but also how their team members are not using AI. Can we celebrate the fact of what is so human about the work that we do and think about how to reward and encourage it? For example, I was in Northern Ireland recently talking with teachers, and they reported that by using some of the AI tools, they were not only saving 10 hours per week per teacher in a public school system, but they were using that time to connect more with their students, to actually bring their passion and enthusiasm about the subject into the classroom. And I think things like that are important. Where can we offload some of the more rudimentary tasks, but also celebrate the human aspect we're bringing into things? So I think some of the durable skills are things like curiosity, human connection, collaboration. These are even more important in an age of AI.
And I loved that you mentioned curiosity, because I have a question about that. How important is that? Technology gives us quick answers, but how can we cultivate the ability to ask better questions?
Well, it starts with asking the first question, asking the next one, and the third. As an engineer, I approach everything with how many times can we ask questions, really? It's about problem solving. And I think in some ways we have the way that the education system, as an example, has worked is you have a test, you have to study for the right answer, not asking the right questions. And so I think if we can start encouraging question asking and curiosity, and not just one question, like for even my own children, as they use AI, I try to say, okay, ask at least 3 questions to see if you get, to understand the answer was better. So I do think with AI, asking good questions will become even more important. And the nice thing about this tool is you can ask a question in a very natural way. And so what we're finding is some people feel less judgment so they can learn to ask better questions just by interacting with the AI and then bringing it back into the conversations. I find this at work even with my colleagues of being able to say, okay, here's the question I want to ask. How can I ask it better? Here's what's motivating me. How can I make, they're sensitive about these topics. Okay, how can I now have a better conversation and dialogue so that I can get a better interaction?
And according to another study that I saw, 90% of students, higher students, have used AI for research. So there's 2 directions, learning with AI and learning about AI. So how do you see those 2 ideas working together in practice?
I think it's good to learn about AI because then you can better understand this tool that you're working with. And I really do believe that, it's like if you can better understand the tool you're working with, you will be able to get more out of it. So I think you need to have some basic knowledge, but then being comfortable to use it is important. I think a lot about the fact that AI is developing very quickly right now, but we're still in the early stages. And actually being able to practice on how to use it now is a good thing. The longer you wait, the more capable it gets. And again, you risk being left behind. But now we have this agency to shape how how we want AI to come into our lives as individuals and as collective. And so I think learning to work with AI and knowing more about yourself of what do you want to bring into it, I think is very important. Again, it's a safe time to be investing in that experience.
And that's challenging for kids, especially. I'm not a parent yet, but I have a lot of nieces and nephews. And I see that they can ask AI to do their homework, for example. So some worry that AI may weaken learning thinking. Why study if a bot can tell me everything? So how can we integrate AI in ways that don't make us intellectually lazy? And how should parents as well navigate this new world?
Yeah, I think this is a real concern. It's a big part of the reason why I think learning to use AI at school is important. By shutting it out, the students are still going to be accessing the technology. But if you use it in a classroom, you can learn good study habits and then use it outside of classroom and bring it back in. This is also why we came up with the technology feature around guided learning, because being able to not give the answer, not just be a know-it-all, but instead like really learning about something and being able to go into steps is very important. I also, there's two ways. So teachers and classrooms are important, but so are parents. Many people think if I'm not supposed to use it, I want to use it. Whereas instead, if we start to shift the culture to say, let's talk about appropriate usage. Maybe in one class we can use it as a reference, or tell me the questions that you asked the AI. Again, supporting curiosity. So I think there's many ways that we can bring this into the classroom, and we're trying to work with teacher groups and organizations and institutes globally to think about how we really bring AI in a way that supports the human aspect. We like to think of it as not a human in the loop, but the human in the lead. And if we can keep human in the lead of the technology, yes. But children don't have good mental models. It's up to us as adults to think about how we want to teach them and showcase the way that this can be done.
And we have to talk about critical skills as well. So what habits should educators and learners adopt to preserve this critical thinking?
Yeah. And I like to call these some of the durable skills. I actually learned that from my children's school, from the headmaster, who said, okay, let's not talk about soft skills. These are actually, I used to call them power skills, but I actually think in the age of AI, they're durable skills, because regardless of the technology capability, we know that the magic is not the technology. The technology is a tool, and the human part of what we're doing is the magical part. So I think that goes back to how do we think about curiosity, how do we think about critical thinking, and how do we think about collaboration, or the 3 C's as I like to call them.
Okay. And Lila, I have to say, as a journalist, I worry about the risk of misinformation, especially with AI creating content so easily. So what steps can we take to make sure the information we get is accurate and trustworthy?
I think right now this is a big challenge on a lot of people's minds. I think it's also why asking questions and getting different sources is quite helpful. We've been doing a lot of work around misinformation. Google has a long history in this space. We've also developed tools like SynthID, which is a technology called watermarking, so that you can see if something has been generated by artificial intelligence, and that's across our products, and we're working with other companies, technology companies, to adopt the same technology. So regardless of where it may have been developed, you can detect that. But I also think it comes back to, even if we have information, how do we trust it? And that's really going to be the part that I think of humans of learning to ask the questions and interrogating the sources is really important.
Okay, so in an environment driven by numbers, data, and code, do you think there's room for humanity? You talked a lot about that, but where do you see the human element in the AI conversation?
Yeah, I think it's missing. I think we need to keep it more more prevalent, more front and center. And again, this is why I took this role, because as a technologist, as an engineer by training with over 30 years of experience, to me, this is not just about the technology and the capabilities. We have to do this in partnership with different communities so that, again, AI happens with us and for us and not to us. And I think too many times we're talking about the feature and the capability without talking about the so what, the why, the how. And so we don't know what the future is going to look like. There's many people with many different types of predictions, but they're really just predictions. We don't know what that's going to be, but we can shape how we get there. But we can only do that if we work collaboratively. It's not one company or one country. We have to do this in a way that is thinking about the global impact. I like to use the fact that over 40% of the world's population is 25 and younger. 90% of them are in the global south. If we're going to make AI work for humanity, we need to bring that youth population into the conversation. My generation may be building the technology, and we have to do so responsibly. This is our legacy that we're leaving. And we have to ensure that the younger generation knows they have the agency to shape it. And that will only happen if they have the access and the literacy and the adoption to be able to participate in this moment in time.
And it's really complex because at the same time, shouldn't we be concerned about AI starting to seem more and more human? I mean, what's the line between technology that helps us and technology that might blur those boundaries?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. The benefit, we talked a lot about the benefits of having a technology that can communicate in forms that we like, whether it's you listen to it or show images and type, etc. But with that comes a downside and a risk. And it's been an area that since DeepMind's founding in 2010, we've invested a lot in research around the social interaction of humans with a technology. One of the teams, so my job is actually to think both about the risks and the opportunities. On the risk side, one of the areas that we have is an ethics research team. And they do work of thinking around what's coming in the capabilities of AI. And actually, when we start a new area of research, how do we start thinking about investing in the opportunity, but also in the risk? So for example, when large language models were just starting, we published an ethics paper around the vocabulary around risk and opportunities. And we waited for that to be finished before we published the technical paper. Similarly, when something called the agentic work, which is AI as a tool to take action on your behalf with your permission, we did the same thing. We published a paper that the industry now uses talking about both the risk and opportunity. So we have a team of ethicists, we have a team of child psychologists. We work hand in hand with the neuroscientists, the biologists, the computer software engineers, all together as a team from the very beginning of the research to say, how do we identify the risks? How do we think about the opportunities and work hand in hand to develop both? And we don't always get it right, but that's part of pioneering. But we have to be able to respond quickly. And when we don't have that expertise, how do we find the partners who can work with us in order to bring their expertise and their voice around the table? That's one thing I have learned in my career of, always being an outsider, is you have to think, are the voices in the room being heard? If the people aren't around the table, then how do you find the voices to bring them into the conversation or take the technology out? And again, we have this unique moment in time where we can shape how AI gets developed. And I'm happy that externally, that globally, we're talking about the risks because it puts accountability into the system to think about what are the risks, how do we mitigate them, and we need to be talking about the opportunity and how do we make sure that this transformative tool can really benefit humanity. We have a chance to use AI like a microscope or a telescope to understand the world around us, come up with solutions to some of our biggest challenges, rather than going to space, we can think about how do we make planet Earth better, healthier? How do we make our people, our communities better, healthier, successful? But we can only do that if we invest in the opportunities.
Still talking about the risks, who is responsible for the misuse of AI? How do we control these risks and regulate its use?
Yeah. Well, I like to think of risks kind of on a continuum. There's the near-term risk, like misinformation, bias, etc. There's bad actors using the technology, misuse. And then there's the longer-term risk of who is in control of the technology. I don't think we can think about any one of those risks. We have to think about all of them together at the same time and invest in all of them. And even within an organization not like ours, we have people with different focus on risk. So I think it's important to have that breadth. And we know that regulation is important, and we have to have it right-sized so we don't miss out on both the opportunity. We don't miss out on the opportunity. But we think of AI as a tool. And just like as a tool, we regulate the usage. An example I like to use is a really good fast car engine, right? You don't regulate the engine. You think about the car and the speed limits, and you think about seatbelts and other things. So it's an entire system. So I think we have to think about AI similarly, which is it's just one part. Like if it's going to be in healthcare, how do we regulate the usage of it, not just AI standalone as a tool across many different industries?
And with everything happening, Lila, where do you see the biggest opportunities for individual professionals who want to grow and for large companies looking to evolve?
Yeah, the interesting thing about AI is it's a general purpose tool. So what works at home usually works at the office. So, it's interesting, I was meeting with some of the Brazilian business leaders, and the topics that lit them up about AI, even if it's at work, was always the personal usage. Because I think it's touching us in a different way at home. So for example, I can now help my children with their homework assignments because I can use guided learning to break down the physics problem I don't understand, or to plan the summer activities because it's too many communication from school and too many different options. So I think when we can show up as better people in our lives, it's really what unlocks the excitement for people. But at work, what we're seeing is it's already having a transformative impact. But it's right now, it's still in the early days of some of the efficiency. For example, one of my team, I asked my team, I said, tell me how you're using AI. I want everyone's ideas. And then what do you need to use it more? And then where are you not using it? That the human part is so important. And it's been really interesting because to create a safe environment for people to share their ideas, coach one another, and we've really found some really interesting ways. One of our one of our team members who works on marketing insights actually uses, she has different almost personas of like, okay, this is Lila. I have to review this presentation with Lila. How should I make this better so that she will understand this information? Or, okay, I'm now presenting to our product team. So how do I need to make this, adapt this for product? So she still has her job that's very important and her understanding of the nuance and the culture, but she's able to tailor her presentations in a way that provides the teams the information that they need to advance their work. So in many ways, it's not about taking the place of a job. It's actually about enabling people to have more tailored experiences in their lives.
As I said at the beginning, AI sparks a lot of different opinions. Which aspect of AI's social and economic impact is still misunderstood by the public, in your opinion?
I think a lot of people are, from where I sit, there's a lot of concern about where is this going. And I think that's important. But I think we need to be participating in the here and now to ensure that we don't inadvertently create the future we're scared of. And instead, start to embrace the technology in a way that lets us shape the future in a more informed way. In many ways, we're over-indexing on the near-term risks, and we're not focusing enough on what is really important about what we want to preserve and where we want to change. I'll give you another example around education. Right now, we're layering artificial intelligence on top of the existing education system, but the education system isn't built for everyone. So we're working with education experts worldwide as well to say, actually, we have this industrial mode of you come in, teachers are rewarded by test results and graduation rates rather than whether someone has learned. And we're preparing people for jobs that were for decades ago, not jobs that are for right now. So how do we need to think about the skills differently? So I think we can talk about, how are people using AI in classrooms now? But if they're using it, then they can start having more informed conversations like, how do we think about the future? What is the future we want to build? Who should be in charge of co-creating and co-imagining that future? I would like us to be, what are the risks? How do we make sure we're not going to propagate the issues that we have today? I think these are all very important conversations. We need more people participating, but they can participate if they understand the technology and the current risks and opportunities.
Do you think there's a good future and a bad future for AI? What would they be like?
When I took this job, it was, maybe to answer your question, I'll tell you a personal story. I had spent 18 years in the semiconductor industry at Intel, which first brought me to Brazil. And then I did venture capital, working with startups, and that was exciting. And then Coursera, which is really around education and democratizing education. And I thought, I'm approaching an age where I have something big left in me. What do I want to do? And this opportunity came up. And the more I said, well, I'm not an AI expert. I might be an engineer and a technologist, but AI is not my specialty. And this was 2018. So I spent 50 hours interviewing. Yes, that's a lot of time. And it was in London, and I'm like, why would I leave Silicon Valley to go do this? And I thought about all the opportunities that this could we, coming from venture capital, where I saw people trying to solve problems at a small scale. And AI could be such a transformative solution, but it could also have big risks. And could I put my daughters to sleep at night if they knew mommy worked on AI? And I was really worried. I had to have a lot of conversations, a lot of thinking. So that 50 hours was as much as me interviewing the company as it was them making sure I was the right fit. So long story, but it comes to, do I think the future could be positive or negative? I wouldn't be here if I didn't think it could be positive. And I think we have a responsibility to steward this technology with intentionality and with responsibility. And I think that that's really what drives me. And it's why I'm here in Brazil, because I would like more Brazilian voices into the global conversation. One thing about this technology is we're having a lot of global conversations. And absolutely, Brazil deserves and needs to have a seat at the table.
I know that this would be a very good ending, but I have one last question because I really like to talk about the human side of it. From a personal perspective, what does it mean to be human in this ultra technological world? What must we never lose sight of?
If I take a step back, I love the fact that you've asked me this question. Could you imagine pre-AI ever sitting down in an interview and asking somebody, and you know what, these are the conversations we have with business leaders, around dinner tables, with friends, with industry colleagues. The fact that we're actually asking what is truth, what is fact, what does it mean to be human, how do we connect, how do we stay connected? I think this is a beautiful thing. And do I have an answer? I'm finding my answer. I'm finding my answer through this technology. And I would say in many ways, I'm learning from others too, of like what it means for other people. again, even asking my own team of, okay, you're using this as a tool, but where are you finding the human connection satisfying and finding ways to connect with people? And I think in some ways we lost that, and maybe in COVID we lost it even more. So having this on the other side of COVID, I think also changes the conversation.
Yeah. Lila, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your insights with us. Thank you for your time. Thank you for visiting Brazil again. Very, very happy to have you here.
Yeah, it's exciting, and I hope this is the first of many trips in my role here at DeepMind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. É isso então, gente. Entrevista com a Lila Ibrahim aqui no Brasil para esse anúncio, né, para esse investimento. Lembrando que tecnologia e inteligência artificial, a gente está sempre de olho na CNN. É só ficar de olho no nosso site. Até a próxima.